The evening light had a way of softening everything inside the small house. It fell through the narrow window in golden streams, laying itself across the wooden floorboards, across the rough fabric of the curtains, across the grandmother's face. Her face was a landscape of years. Fine lines crossing like rivers on a map. Her eyes carrying a depth that only sorrow and endurance could carve. Yet in that same face there was warmth. The kind of warmth that comes not from laughter alone, but from surviving storms and still finding a reason to smile. She sat at the low table, her hands folded in her lap. Wrinkled hands, thin but strong. Hands that had carried firewood, kneaded bread, buried loved ones, held newborns, and comforted the broken. Across from her, perched on a small woven stool, her grandchild sat, legs swinging, eyes wide with curiosity. The child's hair caught the light, making it glow like a halo. They watched her every movement, even the way she breathed. Outside, the cicadas sang their endless song. Inside, the ticking of the old clock measured the silence between them. The child tilted their head. "Grandma," they said, their voice soft, "will you tell me a story? Not the ones about kings and dragons. A real story, your story." The grandmother's lips curved into a faint smile. Her gaze drifted toward the window, as though the fading light might answer for her. Then she turned back, and with a small sigh, she placed her hand gently over the child's. "My story," she murmured, her voice carrying both tremor and strength, "is not an easy one. It is full of storms, and storms leave marks that never fade." The child's eyes grew even wider, but they did not pull away. Instead, they squeezed her hand, the way a small bird might nestle against a weary branch. "Please," the child whispered. The grandmother's eyes glistened. She drew a deep breath, and as she began to speak, the room seemed to bend, the evening light shifting, carrying her words into another time. A time of laughter, of fire, of loss. It was the beginning of a journey not only into her past, but into the fragile, enduring thread that connects generations. Memory. The memory began in color. The grandmother's voice, soft but steady, painted the evening in hues brighter than the dim room she now sat in. The child, listening intently, could almost see it too. Lanterns swaying, laughter spilling into the air, drums echoing across the village square. "I was 12 years old," she said, her tired eyes fixed somewhere beyond the walls of her house. The night was alive, as if the stars themselves had come down to dance with us. And indeed they danced us. The village festival came only once a year, marking the harvest's end. Stalls lined the dusty streets, heavy with roasted corn, sweet rice cakes, and steaming bowls of broth that filled the air with warmth. Children ran barefoot, their hands sticky with syrup, their laughter a chorus. She remembered the glow of lanterns. Paper spheres painted in reds and oranges, strung above the square like floating moons. She remembered the music of fiddles, the clap of drums, the stamping of feet on wood. And she remembered her mother. Her mother's hand was warm around hers, calloused from work, but gentle in every gesture. She wore her festival dress, patched in places, but bright with colors. Yellow, like morning, blue like clear skies. Her mother's smile that night was wide. her eyes glistening with something the girl did not yet understand. A rare moment of peace in a life already bruised by hardship. "Dance with me," her mother had said, pulling her into the crowd. And so she danced awkwardly at first, her braids flying loose as she tripped over her own feet. But her mother laughed, lifting her up, spinning her around until the world blurred into streaks of light and joy. The girl laughed too, so hard that tears formed at the corners of her eyes. She felt safe, untouchable, as if no sorrow could ever reach them there. Back in the present, the child smiled softly. "You must have been so happy." The grandmother nodded. Her lips curved faintly, though her eyes held the weight of what came next. "Yes," she whispered. "I was. And sometimes happiness is sharpest when it is about to be taken away." The memory shifted. It was late into the night when the festival song faltered. At first, it was only a faint sound, a distant whistle that did not belong to music. Then came the pounding of boots, the harsh shouts in a language not her own. The drums fell silent, the fiddle stilled, her mother's hand tightened around hers. "Stay close," she said. Lanterns still burned overhead, but now their light revealed fear etched into every face. Mothers pulled children into their arms. Men whispered urgently, gesturing toward the edges of the square. The joy that had filled the air only moments ago curdled into dread. And then, chaos. Soldiers spilled into the square, their torches blazing. One stall went up in flames, then another, the fire leaping like a beast set free. Screams tore through the night. The girl clutched her mother's hand so tightly, her knuckles burned. She tried not to cry, tried to match her mother's quick steps as they pushed through the throng. Smoke stung her eyes. The sweet scent of roasted corn was gone, replaced by the acrid sting of burning wood and cloth. She heard someone shouting behind them, then the crash of glass shattering. A child wailed, the sound piercing her ears. "Don't let go," her mother cried. But in the press of bodies, in the desperate surge of people fleeing, the hand slipped. Just like that. Her mother was gone. The girl screamed, reaching blindly through the smoke. She saw only shadows, faceless in the firelight. She stumbled, fell, scrambled to her feet, shouting again and again. But her mother's voice was nowhere in the storm of sound. The lanterns overhead began to burst, one by one, their delicate paper skins consumed by fire. In the quiet of the present, the grandmother's hand trembled in her grandchild's. The child's lip quivered. "Did you find her again?" The grandmother's voice lowered, carrying the hush of long-forgotten nights. Her eyes drifted toward the window, where the last threads of evening light surrendered to dusk. "When the smoke cleared," she said, "I was no longer a daughter. I was only a child, alone in a world that no longer wanted me." She remembered waking on the edge of the village, her face streaked with ash, her throat raw from smoke and screaming. The square that had once danced with the lanterns now smoldered with ruin. Stalls reduced to blackened skeletons. The homes silent, the laughter gone. Her legs carried her without knowing where. Through streets she had walked all her life, now foreign in their emptiness. She called her mother's name until her voice cracked, until only a whisper escaped her lips. No answer came. The girl kept walking. For days she wandered. Her small shoes wore through, the soles cutting against stones. She grew used to the gnaw of hunger, the way her stomach twisted like a knot. Her tongue was dry, lips cracked, but she learned to sip from streams, to chew bitter leaves just to keep moving. At night, she huddled beneath trees, shivering in her torn dress, her braids tangled with dust. The stars above were cold witnesses, their beauty cruel in the silence. Sometimes she thought she saw her mother in the shadows. A flicker of movement, a soft call in the wind. Each time she ran toward it, but it dissolved into emptiness. Her only companions were the sounds of the world itself. Owls calling in the distance, the rustle of unseen creatures, the echo of her own heartbeat in the dark. Back in the present, the child whispered, almost afraid to break the spell of the story. "Weren't you scared?" The grandmother looked down at the little hand wrapped around hers. Her thumb stroked the child's skin slowly, thoughtfully. "Yes, I was afraid every moment. But fear," she said, her voice quiet but steady, "teaches us to notice the smallest lights. A crumb of bread, a drop of water, the sound of someone kind." The memory shifted again. It was dusk when she collapsed by the riverbank. Her body trembled with fever. Her reflection in the water was strange. Hollow cheeks, eyes too wide, too old. She thought she might vanish into the earth there, dissolve like smoke into the air. And then, a voice. "Child, what are you doing here?" She turned her head weakly. A woman stood over her, middle-aged. Her basket of laundry resting against her hip. The woman's face was lined with hardship, but her eyes held gentleness. She knelt beside the girl, touching her forehead with the back of her hand. "You're burning," the woman murmured. The girl tried to speak, but only a rasp came out. She pressed the last of her bread against her chest, too afraid it would be taken. The woman did not take it. She lifted the girl instead, her arms strong, smelling faintly of soap and river water. That night, the girl slept in a stranger's home. A rough wooden room with a straw mat and the faint glow of an oil lamp. She remembered the warmth of broth pressed to her lips, the weight of a blanket covering her trembling body, the murmur of the woman's voice humming a tune she did not know. For the first time since the fire, she dreamed not of flames, but of light. Soft, steady, unthreatening. In the present, the grandmother's eyes softened. She reached out to adjust the child's collar, her hands tender despite their tremor. "There are always good hearts, even in the darkest nights," she said. "Remember that. The world can be cruel, yes, but kindness is a light no wind can put out." The child nodded solemnly, their small face serious. They leaned against her arm, nestling closer. "I'm glad someone found you," the child whispered. The grandmother smiled faintly. "So am I." The old clock ticked on, each second carrying them deeper into memory. The grandmother's voice, though heavy, carried warmth. Like a lantern in the long corridor of the past. She drew a slow breath, and her eyes closed as if to summon the next memory from the depths of time.